everyone. My name is John Ochoa. I am an editor with the Recording Academy. Welcome to the first ever AMP Music Summit. Thank you very much for joining us. We started this summit to address the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the music and entertainment industry. We made the summit free to attend. However, if you do have the means, we are collecting donations for a few key organizations who are helping fight the COVID-19 pandemic, including World Central Kitchen, Film to Future, and the Recording Academy's Music Cares. Please go to our website to learn more about each of the organizations, and if you can, please consider making a donation. Today we're talking about the fine art of the pivot, creating opportunity in a shitstorm. And I love that title because it explains exactly what we're all experiencing on an individual level as well as a international community. I'm joined by three lovely ladies who come from different aspects of the entertainment and creative world. I'll let them each make their introduction. Let's go around the digital room and make some quick intros. Please let us know who you are, what you do, and please also let us know what's going on with your business directly right now and what ways you're dealing with the pandemic and its impact on your overall industry. Let's start with Alicia.
Hi guys, okay, I'm Alicia Karlin. I am VP of Global Touring and Talent at AEG Presents and also one of the co-founders of Live Lesson Masters. That is where this AMP Music Summit is being hosted. The live music industry has been greatly affected, clearly, flipped on its head just like everything else, but most touring musicians and their crews are out of work. A lot of their agents are potentially out of work, furloughed, depending on where they work. And managers are working closely with their artists right now to collaborate and fast track new ways of making money during this pandemic, which is kind of one of the things that led to the creation of Live Lesson Masters. And then, on the other hand, at AEG, our whole team has had to cancel, touring for a majority of this year, cancel festivals and events that we all had planned, and come up with new strategies for how we're going to move forward and support artists during this time and how to get them back on their feet and back on the road once this is opening back up.
Great, thank you, Alicia. Rachel.
Hi all, I'm Rachel Miller. I'm a founding partner at Haven Entertainment. We are a management production company. We rep writers and directors and talent on one side. On the other side, we produce everything from docs to features to television. So very busy. I think it's really interesting because some stuff, some productions have obviously shut down, and yet documentaries are still moving forward really well. And the writer side is crazy busy. So it's a really interesting time, trying to figure it out all together. That's kind of me.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Jessie.
Hi, I'm Jessie Rosen. I'm a writer and producer right now, mostly focusing on television writing. And in terms of production, I produce a live storytelling event. So two really different sides of the spectrum in terms of how they're being affected right now. My storytelling series, which happens in a public place every month, is canceled. And we're trying to pivot to figure out ways to host that live, as other shows like that have had success in doing. And then in terms of my television writing career, obviously the television industry is completely shut down in terms of producing and shooting television. I was really lucky to start an assignment right before the quarantine went into session. So I'm running a virtual writer's room, which I've never done before in my life. And then thinking about what happens next and what the future of television production looks like. So therefore, what the future of television writing is going to look like. And as a creator of television ideas, trying to kind of figure out how I create for the next phase of what production is going to look like and what that changing landscape is going to be.
Great, thank you. The COVID-19 pandemic is indeed unprecedented on many levels. However, it is not our first crisis to have an industry-wide or even global ramifications. Rachel, let's take your story, for example. You launched your previous company in 2016. I'm sorry, in 2006. A few months later, the 2007-2008 writer strike happened, shutting down the Hollywood entertainment complex. Given what you went through in that experience, what are some of the lessons you've learned from that experience that we should be watching and learning from now?
Yeah, it's actually a crazy and, in hindsight, great story. I was 23 years old when I started my first company, promoted myself from assistant to CEO, very middle-class family. So like had no money, didn't know what I was doing, making it up as I went along. We were 6 months in business. We were a baby company repping baby writers when the entire writer strike hit, and it was dark days. But in this time, the interesting thing was the only thing that wasn't under guild rules was novels and writing books, and that was something that writers could still write technically under the strike. And so we had $200 in our bank account. My business partner and I flew to New York to sleep on a friend's couch, and we met with everyone in the book publishing business, and we basically taught ourselves the book business. We were like, tell us what you know. And when we came back, we had a client, the comedian Ben Schwartz, who sent us this insanely hilarious postcard. And we called up a book agent we had met in that New York trip, and we said like, hey, can we do a book out of these stupid, insanely funny cartoons? And he said, yeah. And we ended up selling a 3-book deal, a t-shirt line, a calendar, and a UK version, which basically saved our company. And it really taught me the value of, you kind of have to assume shit's gonna happen as a creative. There could be a writer strike, 9/11, a venue could get rained out, right? Like things will happen as a creative, and you have to be versatile, you have to be willing to pivot, and you have to be prepared for work stoppages. They will happen. And so that's been like my guiding principle, to all my clients of, you have to be willing to jump into anything. And if you're a writer or a musician, like you have to explore all the different revenue fields and be prepared to do something you might not have experience in. But if there's a work stoppage and you can do that, jump right in.
The pandemic has virtually shut down the global economy. Many big companies and corporations have stepped in to chip in with benefits and relief funds, but there are many independent artists and creatives who are essentially on their own. I'm thinking a lot about tour managers or stage techs. How should independent artists and creatives and industry people specifically be looking at our current situation as a potential opportunity? And what can independent companies and artists do now to pivot toward new income streams, branding deals, or other similar types of opportunities? Maybe Alicia, you can speak on that.
Sure. So I think anytime you have, crisis or downturns, there's opportunity that opens up. And I think that there are a lot of musicians that are really making the best of this situation. I think some artists have an advantage. A lot of artists who are already doing a lot digitally, especially those in the electronic scene, or artists, a lot of artists in like the jam scene that already had a really strong kind of following on streaming their shows, and their fan base is really used to consuming their shows in that medium already, hungry for past content, are doing really well in pivoting into this new way and kind of going all in those avenues. A lot of artists who've never had to do that, or it's not been part of their aesthetic or their brand or how they connect with their fans, are having a harder time. So, obviously Live Lesson Masters is one of the lots of different avenues that have opened up. But what we're doing for artists, and where we saw an opportunity, is that a lot of artists aren't with their bandmates, but have a lot to offer. And a lot of artists have never had the time or the opportunity or the necessity to have to shift their business model and connect one-on-one with fans. However, there is a really great hunger for fans, for connectivity, and for fan engagement one-on-one with their favorite artists, with their favorite musicians, with their favorite yogis, with their favorite chefs, writers. And people do want to learn. And even if they're not a musician, they want to connect. And a lot of people are really lonely right now. And that also is taking a toll on our country and our world's mental health. I just think that there's so many options right now. If you can kind of break free of some of the molds that you've set for yourself, or how you envision your brand or your aesthetic or how you deliver your content, and get creative with your team. A lot of tour managers, a lot of touring services people, there are going to be things that open up in the next couple of months, and not in the most traditional way, but we don't know what that looks like. So we're going to have to all be ready. And whether it's, that bands are able to congregate amongst themselves to create experiences that are then broadcast in new ways, those are going to open up opportunities for the first people that really master their craft. And I think one of the things that this pandemic is going to show for a lot of industries is that the cream is going to rise to the top, and the people that, are really hungry and really can get in there and support the creative industries are going to be relied upon as we come out of this, because we don't know, how things are going to ebb and flow moving forward.
On the same note, we don't really know, actually we have no idea how long this pandemic is going to last, how long we're going to be in this situation. There's a lot of information and a lot of misinformation floating around. And we don't know when the live music industry is going to open again. We may not see live events or festivals till the fall or even 2021. And as you mentioned, there are many artists and creatives who are doing a great job with creating connectivity and engagement online via live streams, social media meetups. But we do run a risk of saturation on the digital market and fatigue on behalf of the fans. How should artists and creatives be thinking about long-term longevity and a long-term plan for keeping an engaged audience to keep coming back for however long we're in this lockdown?
Yeah, do you want me to jump back in on that?
If you'd like to, if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll briefly touch on it and then pass it over. I think that really understanding your fan base and super serving your fans right now is the key. Not everybody's fan base is on every medium or connects with every type of service that's out there. If your fans don't live on Twitch, then maybe that's not for you. If your fans don't want to consume your product in a certain way, I think it's really understanding your fan base right now and knowing what they're into. And if Instagram Live is the place, or Live Lesson Masters, or whatever it is that you're able to connect with your fans in the way that only you know what that really is by being connected, I think that's going to help the fatigue and not just the constant, 30-second check-in on a stream, because there's just streams on every single platform right now.
I think, Jessie, I'm going to cut in and then give it to you as the creative as the end. I think no one knows. It could be a year, it could be 2 years. But what I think we all have really understood is that human beings crave art. They crave connection. They crave music, right? Creativity and all these things are not simply going to disappear when this is over. In fact, my theory is that people are going to want more of this when they can go out, when it's safe. People are going to see friends and see music and see art. And so 2 things, I think, as creatives: make art, be creative, whether that's songwriting or music or writing. Like, this is a good time to, maybe if the world has slowed down a bit, and Jessie, this is why I'm going to turn it over to you to how to be creative after, is like, take this time to make music and make art, because I think we will see a huge need for this when we come through it. And the other thing, and someone else brought this up in an earlier panel, is this is a great time to, as an artist, build your network. I mean, writers get jobs from other writers, musicians collaborate and get jobs from other musicians. Like, this is a good time to reach out to someone, to do a Zoom cocktail or a mocktail or a coffee or whatever you can do. Like, this is a great time when people are at home to really spend your time building a network. And so when things open up, you're kind of in a much better place. Jessie, I'm going to kick it off to you as a creative.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And I think, John, I think the first part of your question in terms of how to have longevity so that we don't oversaturate and the audience doesn't become, fatigued by the content that's being created. I've found myself both most attracted to, and I've also found that fans and readers of my writing have been most attracted to on my end, creativity that is actually following the course of this experience. So if you think about an artist or a musician that just has a beautiful catalog of music and they're simply playing songs from that catalog, that's one great option. But I've been really attracted to artists that are playing and creating along with the moods that they're feeling. Brandy Carlisle comes to mind. She is quarantining at home with a bunch of kids on this farm, and she's recording virtually and showcasing things that are like, today was like this, and this song felt right, and this mood felt right, because I feel like that is the things are shifting, and as they shift, if artists shift with it, then we continue to be a resource. But then it goes both ways, right? That's also what I need. And so as a writer, I find that that is the content that I'm most looking to and needing to write. I think the audience feels that authenticity, and I think with authenticity comes less fatigue.
It's great. Speaking of, I'd like to keep on the topic of creativity. And Jessie, maybe I'd like to point this question toward you. I've been working from home on my own for almost 3 years now. My home office situation is really nice. I have my dog here. My girlfriend has been working from home with me for the past 6 to 8 weeks. But I know the same cannot be said for all creatives who are working from home for the first time, especially for those who are parents with children at home. On top of all that, the world is in a pandemic, your coworkers are getting laid off, and by the way, the national economy is tanking. As a writer and as a creative person, how do you keep your creativity sharp and at the forefront during such a chaotic environment? And what can artists and creatives do to ensure that their creativity does not suffer during these difficult times?
Yeah. First of all, the very first thing you have to do is just try to take, I think for me, as much pressure off of the expectation of what you should be able to get done in a day based on what your life used to be. So that's got to go out of the window right off the bat, because the last thing that any creative needs is the pressure breathing down on them to get done and to churn and to produce whatever content they need to. So I feel like that's just like the breath that I wish everyone could take out there as they're thinking about it, whether you're a songwriter or a television writer or a producer or even managing talent. And then the second thing is, so John, like you, I've been working from home for many years at this point, so I have a comfort with it. Didn't used to have a coworker in my husband who is the person who spends his day on conference calls, right? So we have had to renegotiate that. And I really mean there was a negotiation. We came to the dining room table and said, when do you need to be most creative? When do you feel best? What times are good for you? How can I create good space? Is music helpful? Okay, then you can have the dining room and soft music that you like for these hours. Like, we really sat down like we were a new office and tried to figure that out. And as a creative, I had to hone in on what space works for me. And then I had to ask for that in my new home environment. I had to kind of say, I need this. Can you help me out? Can we help each other out so I can maintain this space? And then the third thing is, generally we work from a creative place that is, yes, the heart of our creativity, but also with a mind toward commerce, right? I'm creative as a means to an end to continue to make money, to come up with ideas for that. And during this time, I've found that I can only really be creative as a source of release, as a source of comfort. And what's coming out of that for me is a little bit of a different kind of writing. So giving myself the permission to say, yes, I'm typically a television comedy writer, but about day 20 of quarantine, I started a rage writing blog. And I just blog about my rage, and it has been such a great thing for me. And it's allowed me to have the space for the other writing. So allowing for like, whatever's coming up, use it. And don't ignore it, because that's what needs to come out. And I guarantee other people need it too.
I think as a writer myself, I might start a rage blog. I love that idea.
Oh, it feels so good. It feels so good.
Beats screaming in my pillow every night.
Maybe Jessie can have like just like a co host on her blog one day.
Yeah. For the participants who are currently in our conversation, please feel free to send any questions through the chat and Q&A feature on this meeting. I'd like to say on the same topic and pivot to Rachel and Alicia, who both work as managing creatives. You know, on the same front, you've taken on extra duties as de facto therapists for the artists and creatives you manage. You know, with that said, you know, how can artists and creatives, as well as managers and executives, use this current scenario to, you know, inspire their art, inspire songs, inspire writing, inspire new business ideas?
Yeah, Alicia, do you want to go first? Do you want me?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first.
Go for it.
So I think that there's so many ways, you know, and I also live with a creative, and I'm married to a creative, a music photographer who had to pivot as well. All of the events for this, you know, year that he was supposed to be photographing got canceled. So watching what he's been doing and creating a new photo series has been really, really cool to watch, because it's just something totally different from shooting live events. So seeing that, and then kind of looking at what I'm doing with Live Lesson Masters and being able to connect with, you know, hundreds of artists every day now, and kind of working with them in a way that maybe I used to work with artists as an artist manager, one-on-one, and such a big variety of artists has really opened up a lot of different ideas, and seeing their, really, I think it's tapping into these underlying ideas that people haven't had time to execute in the past. And they're just kind of coming up to the surface, I think, right now. And, you know, certain things, we just launched something today on Live Lesson Masters with a guy named Jeff Franca, who's a percussion player and drummer in Thievery Corporation, but he's launching a series around roots music, an 8-week series, and incorporating all these different like masters from different places of reggae and roots music. And you could never get the time right now to get all these people who are typically touring together in an 8-week series on a Monday to come together to deliver that knowledge from these epic people all at once. Coordinating those types of schedules hasn't really been possible before. But now we have a minute to take a deep breath and kind of see the peers that we've always wanted to work with, or consider ideas that maybe an artist had brought to you as a manager years ago that's laying in like the back burner, and now you can bring it forth because you can really put the effort into that, or make the connections that really maybe never seemed possible with somebody else because their schedule never allowed for it. But I think it's being vulnerable as an artist is one of the main things that I've seen. The first hurdle is, okay, I am an artist, I'm a creative, I'm used to this being my day, my year, my path, and having the ability to say, okay, I'm going to swallow this thing that I never thought I'd have to do, and reach out to my fans in a new way and say, will you support me in this venture? And if it speaks to them and if it resonates, which most likely it will, they want to come along and they want to experience something new with you. And I think embracing all of that fear and cultivating it into something new has led to kind of the most prolific things that have come up on the internet that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, my job, and in full disclosure for everyone, Jessie is my amazing client, so she's gonna laugh at a lot of this thoughts. You know, my job is part manager, part therapist, part mystic to guess the future of the business, part job counselor, you know, trying to do all the things. And ultimately, my job truly is to read the tea leaves of the business so my clients can be creative but sell their work. You know, this is a job, this is a career, you know, we want our clients to be able to eat, you know, so a lot of what I'm spending my time doing is, you know, talking to clients, see what they're most passionate about, and then trying to help them find a way and a path that we could sell that, right? So for example, we have a client who's traditionally a comedy writer, but she was like, this event happened in her family and she wanted to write about it, and it's a dark play. And I was kind of like, great, you go write that, because it's going to open up another revenue stream for you in the drama space that you don't have. And that ultimately is going to be helpful for her career. So I think, to Alicia's point and Jessie's point, like, definitely giving creatives the space of like, you don't have to kill yourself, be creative in the way you want to, but think about maybe there's something that you don't have in your quiver or your arsenal or your music toolbox that now is the time to write it. Is it a rage blog if you're a comedy writer? Is it a play? Is it animation if you're traditionally a live action? If you're a musician who does pop, maybe you want to do country. Like, I think this is a great time to kind of tap into your feeling, explore something new, and I do believe that will open up more fields for you as an artist.
I'd like to stay on the topic a bit about money, because that's a big topic that artists and the industry is facing right now. With so many people losing their jobs and the national unemployment rate skyrocketing, there is a big debate right now about whether artists and creatives should be charging their fans for the content they're creating and posting, sharing with their followers and their fans. I'll give you an example. Recently, Erykah Badu was called out for charging her fans between $1 and $2 to access the concert live streams that she's producing from her house. Her argument was that she's paying out of pocket to pay her tech staff, her musicians. Should artists or should not artists and creatives charge for the content they're creating and distributing during a situation like this, given the global financial situation we're all facing?
1,000% yes.
Yeah.
And Erykah Badu's undercharging for her art because she's a queen, the original queen, at $1. People should be bowing down at her feet, thanking her for giving them the gifts of her music during this time for $1.
Agreed.
So, but you know, it's great that she can do that. She can afford to get to have people tune in for $1 because she's giving her money to her tech and raising money for her crew. A lot of people don't have the luxury of doing that and need to be charging a premium, which they should be charging a premium. You can go on Instagram Live and you can have that offering for your fans who maybe can't afford to pay for something. You can have a Facebook stream. I don't think you have to do it all the time. You need to monetize what you're doing. We work in an industry that's a business that supports the entire world and their enjoyment, their happiness, their mental health, and connecting with friends. You know, the creative industry is the undercurrent to our entire economy, and you know how people spend their time and connect together. So anybody who says that they shouldn't be charging is just, it's laughable.
Yeah, and I'll just say from my end, I've spoken to a lot of creative friends who felt uncomfortable charging because they wondered if instead they should be in this time donating money somewhere. Like, is it a bad look? And as we were talking about that, I couldn't agree more with Alicia and Rachel in terms of you should absolutely be keeping the value of this really important commodity. But I did have some friends who decided, okay, I'm going to keep X amount of this because I truly needed to survive. And I'm going to let my fans know that I am still giving a small portion, what I can, to this charity. And for my friends who are struggling to even put content online because they were afraid of this very thing they might come up against, that really helped them. So I'll just offer that as, again, if that's something that is financially viable for you, it may be just a little bit of a better way for you to wrap your head around entering the conversation.
And I think to that, just to add, like, I 100% think artists should be paid, but I think to Jessie's earlier point, be authentic. It's okay to say, hey, guys, Erykah Badu, who is a queen and I love her, she's like, I support 20 musicians. I have a family. I think if you are honest and have that relationship with your fans and say, hey, I'm charging, I need to eat, I need to pay a family, and some people are donating, which is really nice. Some people are not, but I think it's just being authentic and vulnerable and honest and open and saying, this is where I'm at. And by the way, if some people hate that, fine, but your artists need to eat just like everyone else, and they're providing a service. And I 100% think that they should be paid for that service. Okay. I mean, I'm biased, but you know.
But it's true. And really what you said, Jessie, about, you know, there's a place for charity in all aspects of industry, not just in times of crisis, but as you look at, you know, all these businesses who've been one-to-one, Toms or Bombas or this or that, that's a part of their economy. And that, you know, maybe it's a bigger part, and musicians have always been charitable and working with charity organizations and events and concerts for charity. That's also part of the culture of the music business. So I think that when we're talking about music, for sure, there's ways that you can make money and donate simultaneously, and also probably generate more income for yourself, potentially by teaming up with a charity. People want to give when they can, having flexible payments, you know, like a sliding scale, give what you can, starting at this up to this price. All of these models are going to work. There are people that can give and want to give to artists. So the first thing they need to do is, again, get vulnerable with asking, saying, yeah, my work is worth something, and maybe it's offered on a sliding scale, but the people who really want to support that artist, musician, whatever, are gonna give because they're eager to do so.
It's like this. It's similar to the fan who buys a concert ticket that would also buy a piece of merch, a piece of, you know, merch shirt. You know, kind of continuing on this topic, for the first time, many artists and creatives are beginning to sell their skills and experiences as a hard skill set or even as a product. Alicia, your company, Live Lessons Masters, is a perfect example of this. I recently saw a very, very famous dubstep producer who's established selling his skills, his mixing and mastering skills on Twitter. How should artists and creatives think about diversifying their skills and looking at their experiences as potential products or offerings for sale? And, you know, how should artists and creatives think about picking up new skills or new experiences to potentially sell in the future should we face another shutdown like this?
Who should take that question?
whoever
Rachel?
I have a lot of thoughts. So, you know, again, Jessie can attest to this, but I am super intense with my clients, and that this is a job. You can be a creative, it's still a job. We still need to make money for a client. And so the things to answer that question: is your resume up to date? Are your credits up to date? Is your portfolio up to date? Is your LinkedIn up to date? Like, be professional. I think there's a lot of artists, and I say this with love because I rep writers, who don't know or don't know how or don't think that's an important part of the job, but it is, right? And if you're not comfortable doing that, ask a friend. But I text Jessie all the time when her credits aren't up to date on IMDb or her bio could use some tweaking. Like, now is such a great time in this space to like get all that stuff done. Do you have a website? I mean, Jessie, I spent hours with Jessie and her website. Like, is your website done? Is your LinkedIn done? Is your bio done? Is your portfolio done? Do you have samples if you're a music engineer? Like, make it easy for people to find you and make it professional. That would be my tips as a manager.
Are there any kind of menial, unsexy things people should be doing right now? So for example, like you mentioned, updating resumes, creating websites, building social networks. What are some of the type of, maybe Jessie, you can answer this since you are on the creative end, you know, what are some of the things that you're focusing on that may not, you know, directly, are not directly related to you as a to your art and creativity?
No, I think it's really true. One of the things that I feel like I never have time for when I am creating at a faster or busier speed than I am now, is to be reading the types of material that I want to evolve into being able to create, right? So I think good readers are good writers, probably in the same way that for the musicians listening, good music artists are good writers, right? So spending time educating yourself, spending time as a student of your craft again is something that I feel like I can really ignore when I am working and trying to kind of figure out, okay, what is the thing that every time I kind of come up against it, this is really hard for me every time. Mine's drama writing. I'm always looking to kind of include that in my resume, and I don't have as strong of drama writing samples. So I've just been reading tons of drama scripts and watching tons of drama television because I want that. And then it doesn't feel like, I'm big on kind of like, you know, the idea of you can be increasing and enhancing yourself as a creative without actually doing the thing. I don't have to be writing every single day to become better as a writer. There are other things that I can incorporate into my life when I'm too exhausted to write, right? And I think that for every creative discipline, there are those things.
Jessie, I'd like to ask you a question. Mm-hmm. What should creatives and artists be doing now to keep their mental and physical health in check? And Rachel, you might be able to answer this too, since you have a lot of clients you're looking over.
It's a really good question. My first answer is community. It's kind of my answer always. I think that as a creative person, it can be a very solitary experience, and that can be correct for you as a creator. I write alone. I don't work with a writing team, but I really need the group of, in this case, 5, 6 other women in my life who are writers and who are going through this together. We've been in a lot of touch in terms of just what our experience is and kind of commiserating. So I think that that's number one. I think that number two is, as writers, I think that we know what feeds us in normal life and how can we keep that going. So I really am the kind of person that needs this space around my mornings. If anyone's familiar with morning pages, that process of kind of morning journal writing to get the cobwebs out in the morning, I really need that. And there have definitely been quarantine days after perhaps quarantine drinking nights when I haven't done those morning pages, and I feel it. I feel different. So that's something that, like, yes, the whole world is different, and we want to stop everything and quit. Some days you just want to quit. You just want to stop and give up. But those morning pages are a huge part of my mental health journey and a huge part of just my day feeling right. So I would say that kind of what is the piece of the puzzle of your creative experience that feeds you? You know, if you're a musician and you're a songwriter, but improvising on the piano is really the thing that makes you feel good, do that. For me, that kind of free journal writing feels really good. It's like spending the right kind of time with myself. And so I've tried to keep that going because it reminds me that while I am creative as my career and my profession, and my goal is to always translate that creativity into income, I'm also creative because that's who I am as a human. And when I remember that, it reminds me how connected it is to my mental health and that I get to do it, even if it isn't necessarily the hour that I'm doing it to have a product that I can sell, if that makes sense.
Yep. I'd like to add to that sleep is very, very, very important. I think working from home makes it very difficult to divide your work hours and your non-work hours, because technically you're in your office 24 hours a day now, working from home. So make time for that sleep. So as a closing question, I'd like to ask all of you your individual thoughts. This is a shitty situation with shitty consequences on a global scale, but it is not the end of our world. How should the industry and creative community alike think about our, our creativity and our business, looking forward, once this all passes, how will this shift how we think about the future of our industry, how we think about creativity itself, and how we think about art itself?
I have so many thoughts.
Rachel, let's start with you.
I'm going to lead off being super positive.
Yes.
I actually think the crazy part that no one's talking about is that we are training the entire world, 7 billion people, to watch 3 or 4 hours of content a night, to stream music for hours. Like, I actually think, and that's never happened before, everyone is like desperate for connections of humanity and watching content. I think we're going to see a huge renaissance after this. I can't talk. Guys, been a day, both. And so I think it is a really good moment to be positive of art is going to be here to stay. It might change. It might look different. But if you're an artist, music, writer, it's going to be okay. We are going to need content. It might change, but everyone needs stories. So I think that to me is like the hope to cling on to. Like, who knows about the restaurant business? That's a lot scarier. I have friends in the restaurant business. I don't know if restaurants come back, but I do believe art comes back. So I just want to start with saying that of like, this is actually, while it's scary and my husband's in the live concert business and that's terrifying, we will get through this and there will be art and music 100%. I think the big thing for me that's really interesting is thinking about us as a community and thinking about, how we help everyone. I think, and Alicia, I think you said this, the point of staying home for the pandemic is maybe not for you, but helping someone else. You might be fine and healthy, but we're all staying at home to protect other people. And I think thinking about that as an artist, live concerts are not great for ADA, right? Zoom writer rooms, there's a lot of people who can't afford to live in LA or New York, right? And now we have Zoom writer rooms and it's opening it up. Like, I think the thing pushing through this is, one, how we look after our community, from those who are at risk, who those have different needs, who those maybe can't live in the most expensive cities in the world and are creative. And our job is to bring everyone through this. And that's what I think about a lot, is how do we take some lessons? Production on set is 12-hour days. That's not safe, right? That's going to change. So I think there's actually going to be good stuff that takes us through this and that we learn, and there's going to be art. That's my hot take.
Lady? I love that. Yeah, no, I love everything that you said. And I think that, the thing about this is everybody's a little uncomfortable in one way or another. A lot of people are greatly uncomfortable and lost their jobs, but everybody's a little bit uncomfortable at least, and trying to like wrap their head around how to move forward. And I do think that it is all about the bonds that you have with the people in your industry and your community, and those things are going to come out of this way stronger. I think that deal structures are going to change. We're going to have to, like Rachel was saying, we're going to have to find a way to be inclusive, to bring everybody along. If we're going to keep the health of multiple industries alive, everybody's going to have to give a little bit more than they're used to. Artists are going to have to take a little bit less, and in order to have, the next year be building blocks for the entire economy to get back to a place where we can regularly attend concerts or regularly go to restaurants. And yeah, I think that people are connecting in new ways. People are connecting with their coworkers in new ways, from what I've seen, more regularly. Probably working at home and talking on Zoom has made the conversations more pointed, more connected. And I think that there's a lot of benefit that we can take forward in this new way, because we're going to come out of this and be in a new paradigm.
Yeah, I think I want to just kind of answer it in terms of like a real personal experience of what artists may be going through. And I am equally positive about that. I feel like it's our job as artists to continue to kind of excavate to the core of what is true for us, what is most vulnerable, how we can be more deeply honest, how we can be more deeply authentic. And nothing breeds that than walking through a moment like this. I feel like I don't have energy to write unless it's true, unless I really give a shit, unless it's really inspiring me. And I think that that's going to be a really good thing for us as we step beyond this, is that idea that, you know, while I was in this moment, I really spent time listening to myself. I wrote the things that were most important to me and that I needed to write to kind of stay sane. And in that, I really discovered more voice, discovered more strength, etc. I always have viewed writing in particular, and I think this is true for any creative pursuit, as it's really a muscle. You know, I kind of like, it's like going to the gym, right? And you don't have to run 5 miles every time you go, but if you go and you walk a little and you stretch a little and you maintain that, you come out of this with that ability to keep going. So I think about that on days when I'm not feeling particularly creative. I think like Anne Lamott, who wrote Bird by Bird, says that the most important thing about being a writer is putting your ass in a chair. And I just often think like, let me put my butt in a seat and just see what comes up. And that's a kind of training for any creative things that may come up in the future, no matter what the landscape looks like, is an ability to survive and an ability to get deeper in touch with who you are as an artist.
Great. We do have a couple of audience questions, quotes. Maybe Jessie, maybe you can answer this one. I had Susie Analog, who, if I'm correct, is this great artist. She's asking if you can explain a little bit more about Zoom writer rooms and, you know, maybe what they are and how they operate.
Yeah, so a Zoom writer's room, much like any television writer's room, features all the different people who are the staff of that television show. So I jump on as the showrunner of that show, and on any given session, usually I keep our sessions to just a couple hours with some breaks in between. We can be talking about anything from, okay, it's time to figure out what's going to happen in episode 101. To, okay, everybody wrote their scripts and we're going to come together, and using the brilliant share screen feature through Zoom, we're going to walk down this script together and look at some jokes and figure out how to punch them up. Or what I do with my writer's room now is we're going to get on for just 15 minutes every day and talk about something that was a huge breakthrough in terms of getting some writing done. And that may be, guys, I found a brand new espresso bean, super effective, everyone should use it. So we spend time getting the job done, the job of writing a television show. In this case, it's a season of television. We're writing 12 episodes, but we also spend time as a writer's room, as a community, helping each other through Zoom, through these meetups, figure out how to get the work done and be there for each other. Sometimes for me, that also means one-on-one meetings with writers to go over their specific work that they just got done.
Excellent. Okay. And that sounds like it's something that, you know, can work beyond the, you know, TV, film writing
Totally.
scenario. Sounds like anything from like a blog to a management company can do a similar type of writer room setup.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll also mention real quick, John, that I'm also teaching a writing class, a blogging class via Zoom. So it totally translates to teaching, which I'm sure Alicia knows a lot about in terms of the classes that they're doing.
Great. I have another fantastic question from Stephanie. Should musical artists be making more of an effort now to stand out online while we're all apart physically, or should artists be using this time to lay low and refine their craft and projects? So essentially, should they be creating and distributing online, or should they be focusing on, you know, developing their music or their craft as artists?
Both, but you know, whatever feels like the right path. You know, if you can be spending this time, if this time is actually really inspiring you to create, you know, incredible content for the other side, then I think that's what you should do. But if you're feeling more inspired to be connected online to your friends, your fans, other creatives, other musicians, then or maybe any mix of that, you know, I think it's really personal for each person and their craft and what makes them feel inspired. But I think that the authenticity that Jessie was talking about is what is the most important. That's what's going to come through, and being in the moment. And I do really that did resonate. People want to connect about this moment and feel a vibe that feels good for this moment. And I think if you're kind of matching that energy, that's what people are feeling right now.
I also think like it's not possible to be creative for 20 hours a day. That's simply not possible. So figure out your own rhythm. Like Jessie said, if you're creative in the morning, great. Spend the morning to do that, and then spend the morning doing other things, your website, your community, your social media presence. Like, be generous and thoughtful to yourself and figure out when are you most creative, be creative and then do other stuff at other times. Like, you know, we're all at home. There's no 9 to 5 anymore. If you want to wake up at 3 a.m. and write, go do that, or make music, right? You know, you can do all these things together and move your career and your own personal growth during this time period. I think you should be doing it both all the time. Well, that's it.
Okay, we are coming close to our call time here. There was a question specifically about live lessons masters. Looks like we answered it on the chat, but the question was asking about whether there are going to be more creative industries available to tap into the platform. So Alicia, I don't know if you wanted to add on to what you
I can
said
quickly
in the chat.
answer that. Sure. So yeah, we started with, you know, our most close circle of people, and as this kind of started, we got rallied around music and cooking and yoga and wellness, but we are adding touring services and live production and studio production, and then that also we have some writers that are coming on and doing writing workshops, visual artists. I've been in touch with a lot of different visual artists, and so really looking to expand in any creative avenue for anybody that wants to teach, you know, a craft at a high level.
I got a question just now. Do you see ticketed live music event streaming time? Oh, do you see ticketed live music event streaming as a viable option now? Is what the question is asking.
Yeah, I understand. Instead of like a one-to-many stream. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to replicate the live experience in an online way with a closed amount of participants. Whatever that number is, it's flexible depending on the artist and what feels good to them. But yeah, I think that those events do have value and ticketing, and we've done some of them and they've been really successful. And I think they're really meaningful for the artists too, in getting that experience of seeing and interacting with their fans in a way that replicates what they get on a stage.
I also think, just to add to that, it's kind of going back to my point, streaming is important because not everyone can spend $300 going to see a show. That's just not realistic for health reasons, for other reasons, for geographic reasons. I think this moment is really opening people up that there are ways we can bring in fans and bring in community, or bring in writers who live in other states and can't afford LA and New York. Like, our job, I really do believe, is to bring everyone with us. And I think the streaming is an important part of it, because not everyone has the money or the time or the ability to go to a show. And this is a great way to see music and be inspired. So I think
show your kids, like not people can't take their kids out all the time to shows at night, and be exposing them to different types of music in a new way, I think is incredible.
I really do believe, and I hope that our audience takes it away, like, I do think good things are happening in this horrible moment. And I do think it's important to know and understand that art is going to be here, and we are learning good lessons, and innovation is happening, and that the art community, whether it's in Hollywood or music, is going to get through this and hopefully look a little different and look a little better in the future.
Okay. I had a quick question come up. So another one specifically for live lesson masters. Alicia, they're asking if there are going to be any Spanish or Portuguese lessons added to the platform. So essentially any other languages.
Yes, that's an amazing question. We actually have somebody that just came on this week. His name is Pato. He is a multi-instrumentalist in Naco and Medicine for the People. He speaks Portuguese. He's fluent in Portuguese and Spanish, a band that I've worked with for a really long time. So whoever asked that question, it's very timely.
Great. Okay. I'm getting kicked out of this room now. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to our amazing guests, Rachel, Alicia, and Jessie. To everyone watching, please make sure to visit our website, ampmusicsummit.com. Again, we're taking donations for some amazing organizations who are fighting the good fight in the COVID-19 pandemic. Visit our Facebook group and use the hashtag #AmpMusicSummit. Thank you, everyone, and make sure to visit the schedule for any remaining panels today. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye, all.